All right, everyone, welcome to another episode. Today's episode is a special one for me because I'm not just interviewing a colleague, I'm also sitting down with someone whose journey I've had the privilege to witness firsthand. Dr. Brittany Eidson is a board-certified facial cosmetic surgeon and a board-certified oral and maxillofacial surgeon, as well as a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. She's also the co-founder of True Form Surgery in Michigan, where she and her husband are building a thriving, patient-centered practice focused on both facial aesthetics and oral and maxillofacial surgery. Her path is anything but ordinary. Dr. Eidson trained at the University of Michigan, went on to complete her residency training in oral and maxillofacial surgery in the United States Army at Walter Reed, and served our country for 13 years, rising to the rank of major. During her time in the military, she performed complex procedures ranging from rhinoplasty to orthodontic and reconstructive surgery on hundreds of active duty soldiers. After her military service, she pursued an advanced fellowship training in facial cosmetic surgery through the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery right here in McLean, Virginia, where I had the opportunity to train her. What stood out to me then is exactly what defines her today: discipline, precision, humility, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Fast forward today, she's not only built a successful surgical practice, but she's also teaching alongside leaders in the field, most recently as a faculty at the AACS annual scientific meeting on one of the most prestigious stages in cosmetic surgery. In this conversation, we're going to dive into everything from the truth behind cosmetic surgery trends to the psychology of patients and to what it really takes to build a career and a practice in this field. Brittany, so great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Honestly, I have to be honest with you, I'm very surprised, given just the nature of things, how soon you have risen and surpassed expectations, at least my personal expectations. Not that I didn't believe in you. I believe in all my fellows and anyone that train. You know yourself, I was always cheering for you, motivating you, especially when it came to just taking things head on and getting onto social media, putting yourself out there, telling people who you are, what you can do for them. And you just literally took my advice the next day and started just putting in the reps. And it does take an amount of discipline to do that, but also self-belief. Now, before we get into your journey, you've been in practice for how long now?
It's been
4 years?
coming up on 4 years.
4 years. So what is the biggest lie, in your opinion, patients are told about cosmetic surgery or aesthetic medicine that when patients come to you, you have to unpack and demystify?
Oh man, there's so many lies now that are floating around. That's why we're out here on, social media and trying to write everything. But I think the biggest lie would have to be that this aesthetic journey is quick. We're in this world of instant gratification where everybody wants their Amazon package the next day. And I feel like so many people come to me and say, you know, "Uh, I want minimal downtime. I can't do that." And, they push and push and push for something that's quick and easy. And it's not always the case, but they could go to the med spa down the street and somebody else might tell them, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And you'll be back to work the next day. I just think that this world of instant gratification is actually not acting in our favor here. So there's really, got to break that down and really let them understand that this is a journey that we're on, and it's not quick to get these results that you want and to still look natural.
So in your opinion, what are some of the risks that are associated with these type of mixed messages that our field is sending to the patients or the community out there?
I think it's a loss of authority. I mean, you used to go to the doctor to find out what you need, what's wrong, and now I feel like people are coming to me. They've already thrown it into AI. They already, seem to know everything. They have the list of this is what's wrong, this is what I want, and I need to be back to work in 2 days. And it's about really reframing that and bringing the trust back to us. And, we went through all this training and the board certification to have the authority to be able to tell you what's in your best interest. And we it's almost backwards. It feels like, we're taking their diagnosis and saying, okay, sure, here's what you want. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to step away from that and really reframe that for the patient and keep the trust.
I think that is a huge problem, and I think today more so than ever because of what you just said, and that's something that I've noticed that you have, that you possess. It's just this talent and ability, which is to communicate, the ability to communicate. And I love your Instagram posts because you articulate and communicate complex things very simply and very clearly and for the layman. And I think that is one of the must-haves for any cosmetic surgeon today, because a lot of what we do now, more so than ever, has to do with communication. Because you have to, in order to demystify a lot of these things, you have to be able to, first of all, get the patient's ear, because they, like you said, they're set on a procedure, they're set on an outcome, and they're just here to shop for it.
Right.
They're not here to ask us questions. And if you don't have the ability to communicate, if you don't have great bedside manners, it's going to be very, very difficult to get someone's attention. And when I encouraged you to get on social media, I didn't even know how you communicate, because, when you train someone, they're usually I'm talking, they're listening. And
Or they better be.
yeah. So when I saw you on your post, I don't know if you remember, I immediately gave you feedback. I said, you're doing a great job. Just keep doing it. And some people have it and some people don't. And so I think communication is key more so than ever. But if someone walks in your office asking for a procedure, it won't make them happier. How do you handle that conversation? Like, they're convinced that this is what they need in their life, and that's completely the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
How do you?
education is so important, but I think for a little while, I tried to I'm just going to educate you and just, tell them everything I know. And I felt like it wasn't getting through to patients. They weren't getting it because I'm trying to educate them. Kind of like, if you're in a political debate and somebody's trying to educate you, you're like, no, I'm good. I already have my mind made up, but thanks for your opinion. And that's how it felt. There was just kind of a wall that was up. So instead, I hear what I'm here for this that I saw online or whatever. And so I like to say, what's your goal? If we're sitting back here and we've gone through this journey, it's 6 weeks, it's 12 weeks later. How do you want to feel? What do you want to look like? And I hear that. And then I do a physical exam. And then I'm able to say, you know what, to get you to that place that you just told me about, this is the way and this is why. And it really reframes that, because they told me what is going to make them happy. And now I will tell you what I can do to get you to that place. And so that seems to work way better than when I was just trying to preach or educate and say, no, that's wrong because of this. I think it's been really transformative in my practice and how I'm able to communicate with patients that come in with this preconceived notion or this, this is what I want. This is all I'm getting.
Mm-hmm. I think I love that approach, because from personal experience, oftentimes when you approach it this way, they feel like you're working together with them on their goal, and then they will become receptive. It's kind of leading the horse to the water.
Exactly.
Now, what's the difference between someone that wants to look better, like you just mentioned, but then someone else who will never be satisfied? Have you ever encountered that? Did you ever fall into that trap?
Oh, yeah.
And so tell us a little about it.
Yeah, I think that, we kind of call those red flags that, somebody comes in and they've had this, and this, and they're not happy with this because of this, and they're upset with this surgeon or this person because of this. The person that you see that's been on this journey that is never satisfied, I am okay saying, maybe we can't get there, but maybe these are some more realistic goals for you. But I think that one is a big one. And then people that come in that really want perfection, that say, I have 2 millimeters of asymmetry on this jaw versus this jaw. And it's just, they want absolute perfection. It's not always something that's achievable or possible. So those are the kind of the red flags that we're like, we have to kind of roll it back and reset expectations to really make sure they understand what what I can do and what I can't do. And I'm okay sometimes saying, I can't do that for you. I can't achieve that.
Hmm.
And I think that's better for them in the long run than just trying to say, oh, sure, we'll do this and this. That'll make you perfect. Doesn't always work that way.
Have you ever encountered a patient, or can you think of a story where that diagnosis unfortunately didn't occur before you did the procedure, and then afterwards it unveiled or revealed itself? And then how did you manage that, and what happened?
Yeah, I had a case where I did a surgery and there was, a minor complication, something on the scar that didn't look great. And we were managing it, doing some injections of some PRF
Hmm.
and things like that, and it was looking great. I mean, I had every 2 weeks we had photos, things were looking so great, but this person was just deeply unsatisfied. She could not see past this one area that you couldn't even see on a photo anymore. But she said, "Oh, my family tells me that it looks horrible and this," and she could not get past that. And for me, I had to come to a point where I had to say, I wish I would have said this in the first place, but I had to say, I really can't do anything else. I showed every photo and it just didn't hit with her. And that was really hard to help her through, and ultimately we just kind of, did some maintenance treatments and she
Hmm.
was never happy. And that hurts as a surgeon to know that you did your best and objectively it really looked great. But she was never gonna get past it. I don't think I could have ever made her happy, and I really wish somehow that would have come up a little bit earlier,
Hmm.
before undergoing this journey together. But, you do everything you possibly can to the best of your ability to do the best for the patient, and sometimes there are other factors that you can't get past that.
How do you handle that emotionally? Because I could tell you from personal experience, I remember every one of those patients of the past 20 years. I remember them by name, by
Mhm.
case, by face, everything. And you talking that about them not being able to see past that emotionally. I myself, as a surgeon, when that happens, I can't see past that myself, thinking that, yeah, I probably should have never operated on that person because I don't think I helped her or him.
Mhm.
And emotionally, it really affects me. And I always think about it. And I can't see past those cases. And I always wonder what my colleagues do, how my colleagues emotionally deal with these things. Now, so you're still early in your career, but you don't need to be in practicing for 20 years to have an experience that, just like you mentioned. How do you deal with it emotionally? Do you dwell on it yourself, or do you just turn it off and move on and don't look back in the rearview mirror? How do you handle it? Because that's just a personal thing.
Right. I mean, I would love to say that I turn it off and just keep moving, but there's no way. I mean, like you said, you think about it every time. Every time I do that same procedure, I'm thinking, I'm never going to let that happen again. And I think, unfortunately it happens, but that's the journey of being a good surgeon is
Mm,
owning
mm,
complications, mistakes, and realizing that you can make these things better. But in the end, it's about prevention every
mm.
single time. No, I mean, we just can't be perfect. So I try to reframe it as a learning experience, but you're right. It still weighs on you every single time you do that
Yeah,
procedure again. That's in the back of your mind. I can't let that happen. Don't let that
yeah.
happen again.
I know it's tough. One of the things that I do now, I make a more of a conscious effort to point out these possibilities before
Mm.
I operate on patients. So at
Yes.
least these conversations have taken place. And that's also a good thing for my own sanity, that, hey, because we all have a conscience. I know some patients think we're just out there to get their money, or we just look at them as objects. But sometimes I wish they knew how empathetic we are towards their feelings, towards their, emotions. And but again, there is a percentage, statistically, about 12 to 17% of anyone walking in our offices has some degree of body dysmorphia. There are
Mhm.
different, it's a spectrum, right? So it's sometimes very difficult to identify those patients in the beginning. Some can really mask it, they can hide it. So one of the things I just actually implemented just this year, I've created a questionnaire. It's a 2-page questionnaire where they just check boxes, so they can go
Hmm.
through it pretty quickly. I'll be happy to share it with you. That when they come in for consultation and when they decide they want to do a procedure, I have them fill that out. And
It's a great idea.
that screens for the various spectrums of body dysmorphia. At least, you know, if I am concerned, I can have a conversation with them before I take them to the operating room. And I have the opportunity to say, then maybe I do not want to operate on that patient, or make the patient aware that they have a problem, because maybe they're not aware. Most of them are not aware.
Yeah.
And then offer them help, because there is professional help. There are psychologists that can help with body dysmorphia or body image problems, which is, I think, more significant now with social media.
Well, I was really surprised. I mean, in training and as you go through, you always learn, oh, just avoid, that like the plague, don't ever operate on those people. And I've actually been surprised where like you said, those conversations ahead of time have actually really helped
Hmm.
reset expectations and help them. And I've had two patients that I can think of very discreetly that I think I noticed that ahead of time. We had a good conversation and I was shocked afterwards that their confidence level just went through the roof. And I didn't expect it. I thought, oh no, here's another one where I'm going to be, you know, walking them through day by day this emotional train wreck for them. But then they came out on the other side and were absolutely thrilled in their confidence level. I had family members of theirs emailing me and calling me saying, I can't believe, their mood has totally changed. So not that we're out here trying to cure that, but I think,
Yeah.
like you said, identifying and addressing it, don't be afraid of it and just say, no, I can't operate on you. Address it and you might be surprised.
Yeah, I think that is the hard part, to say no. I think for
Hmm.
me, the longer I went into my career, I acquired the ability to say no more often,
Yeah.
because you don't want to offend someone. You don't want. I actually, as a matter of fact, once I said that to a patient and I refused to do the surgery, and she immediately, I think even from her car, as soon as she left my office, left me the most horrendous review, like completely flipped the script,
Hmm.
described it as if I was pushing to do surgery and telling her all the things that she doesn't need, and completely turning things around out of anger that she
Right.
didn't get what she wanted. And there's nothing I could do about it. I contacted Google. They're like, first of all, it was impossible to get someone,
Oh,
contact
yeah.
anyone there. So it's just sitting there. I figured, and that was very early in my career, and I was very distraught. I was so upset because I thought I helped the patient by saying no, and here it is. She is just lashing back, and so. But ultimately, the one advice I could give you, having been in this for now 2 decades, is that you have to just, you can't look in the rearview mirror. You have to look past that. As long as you're in peace knowing that you did the right thing, otherwise it will chew you up. And that's why a lot of our colleagues, they stop actually performing cosmetic surgery. They
Right.
just go back to the reconstructors. They're like, you know what, I can't deal with this. It's
Hmm.
too much. It's mentally, it's too big of a strain. So in your opinion, now staying on the subject, what's the difference between someone that now is not happy with the results, not because of body image or body dysmorphia problems, but they're just nitpicking on something because someone they trust, like their sister, their mother, or their best friend, or their brother, made a comment that is kind of malicious, maybe out of jealousy, out of ignorance. And because that person has a lot of influence on that patient, now that patient comes back and says, I don't like my results. And until you dig further and you realize someone else put that idea in their head, and initially they loved it, now a year later they come back and say they hate it because of people around them. Do you ever address that? Have you ever, by the way, experienced that? And then how did you address that?
Yeah. I had one very specific one that it was I mean, she raved for a whole year, sent multiple, I think probably 6 patients that year to me. I mean, over the moon. And then all of a sudden, I think it was 15 months, flipped a switch and just called. And my office said, I don't know what's going on. She's like, this is, your biggest fan. And all of a sudden she's calling saying she's so unhappy with her results. And it's like, where did this all come from? So, of course, I'm going to bring her in. We're going to talk about it. But you have to really understand because some patients, there's something that doesn't look great. And I would say if something doesn't look great and I could fix it, if it's a minor revision, I'm going to say that. I'm not just going to say, nope, my work is perfect. We can't do anything. I absolutely address that because in the end, that's my work walking around and I want people to be happy. But sometimes you get that person in and it turns out her husband had said something and pointed something and then showed her in a picture of this thing that like, oh, wow, I can't believe that looks like that. You had all that work done and it looks like that. And that's somebody close to her. And so I saw her that first time. And then the second time she came in again to talk about the treatment plan that I recommended. And her husband was there and we talked about it together. But that's when it came out that this is the person that's driving this. And for me, that's a sensitive situation. But we kind of went back to the beginning and talked about, these are the things that you're saying now are bothering you a year and a half, almost a year and a half later. And do you remember when I recommended that other procedure that would have, helped this and given you those really long-term
Mm,
results? And she said, yeah, I just, I didn't want to do it. And, it was too much money or whatever it was.
hmm
So she told me, I went back in the notes and realized I recommended something else that she declined. And that was something that also just flipped the script in my mind where this shouldn't be an a la carte menu. If I'm going to give you my best, it's got to be my best. It's not to upsell you, it's not to add more things to your treatment plan. But if I recommend all of these things, it's because these are the things you need. And this is how I accomplish it. Just like I talked about before, if I want to get you to that journey that we talked about, your 6 months later happiness, how do we do that? And so that was the thing that clicked in my mind after that scenario of it felt horrible for me. But I thought, you know what? I should have just been a little bit more
mm,
assertive and helped her understand these are the things we need to do to get you there and not compromise my surgery because the patient was driving it based on, finances or fear or whatever it may be.
mm. Interesting. That brings me to the next question, because a lot of what people think, at least when I was in training, I thought cosmetic surgery is all about learning technical things. I couldn't wait to get to the operating room. But a
Mhm.
lot of these, what we're talking about right now, you actually, what I personally learned it is being in a consultation with my mentors in the room as they're talking to the patient, just being a fly in the wall and seeing all these things unfold, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it is deeply psychological, right? What we do. I think a lot of what we do is psychological. So what have patients, since we're talking about this stuff, taught you about self-esteem, identity, and self-confidence that surprised you, or is nothing really surprised you, kind of, or have had become aware of that prior to your training or your experience?
Yeah. So I think uh, beauty, self confidence, aesthetics, all that is so deeply personal. And when you're in training, thinking back to board exams and studying, it's, you look at this is the normal, this is the angle, the measurement, all of these things are the, ideal perception of beauty or perfection or symmetry. And sometimes it's not about that. And that's not, I would say this is where I want to put your nose in relation to your upper lip and your chin. And that's the sign of the normal range. And
Hmm.
that may be way off from the patient or what gives them confidence. If I think something looks not so great, but they, really like having volume in their cheeks right here, it's just so deeply personal what each person feels is beautiful and what is going to make them confident. And so I think that getting to the root of that and realizing that there is a person and human interaction that needs to happen, not just scientifically diagnosing something on a photo.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's also a lot of that has to do. I think with what's going on in their lives, I try to always find out to get more context as to their self confidence or self esteem problem.
Hmm.
Trying to find out what stage of their lives are. Is it like a teenager that's about to go to college and has a big hump on their nose
Hmm.
that was that had maybe a sibling that constantly made fun of them all their lives, and they're so self-confident, aware about that, and they lack the self-esteem and self-confidence? Or is it someone that's middle-aged, maybe just recently got divorced, and now wants to, and all their lives they took care of the children and never took care of themselves, and now they realize they have to take care of themselves? So I think once we understand the story behind the patient, because every patient has a story, no one just
Yes.
wakes up and starts nitpicking their faces, right? I mean, that doesn't happen. And then I try to invest more time in identifying these nuances and the story behind the patient. And I think when you approach the patient within that context, I think we're better able to help them and understand their concerns. And then therefore, then we'll address them differently, whether we reframe things or stage things or even talk them out of something, or maybe present them something that they hadn't thought of, that, like you initially said at the beginning, that might solve their problem. I think understanding the story behind the patient is so key. And that's something I learned, I would say it took me 10 years at least to understand. I got to ask questions about that. I never asked
Hmm.
patients question about that. At first, I thought I might be overstepping boundaries, or it's personal, but every little detail matters, because if you don't address it prior to or during the consultation, it will come up at some point when they're most vulnerable, which is post-operatively.
Yes.
Who's your support group? Who's going to be taking care of you? Who comes with you to the consultation? And all of those things I feel are integral parts, and it makes it even more complicated, especially for the novice surgeons getting into practice. But one of the things that strikes me with you is you don't appear to me as someone that is. You appear to me as an old soul, almost like you've been in this profession for so long. Like, you have to explain to me why. I don't
Why I appear that
understand.
way?
Yeah, I don't understand it because, of course, I compare you to the norm, and I want to know, did you have an epiphany? Did you do independent research? Do you just have that naturally God-given social emotional intelligence and self-awareness? What is it? I mean, you need to tell us a little bit about yourself, and I want you to be honest.
Yeah, I
And
guess I've never.
don't be humble. I really, because I want, this will bring a lot of value to surgeons that are currently doing their fellowship or pursuing a fellowship, or the ones that have recently graduated, as well as surgeons that have been in practice for a decade and are still struggling.
Yeah. Well, I have to be humble because I think that's what has got me to have that affect or that way about me. I am a very, I guess, introspective person. I really study emotional changes on people's face and I listen to what they have to say instead of interrupting, because being humble, especially when we do the cosmetic fellowships, I had already been through residency, years in the military as being my own surgeon. I was a staff surgeon. I was teaching other people. And now I'm back in this place where I have to say, I don't know anything. I'm learning. And I was okay stepping back and saying, even if I think I do, I'm not going to. What does that get me? I'm here for a year to soak in everything I possibly can, and I can form my opinions later. But I do that in my practice now. I take advice from other people. I listen to my patients. If I could say anything to somebody that's trying to really, understand what's going on and have a better relationship with their patients and be that authority. It's be humble. Even, from training to seeing my patients, I let my patients talk. I barely say anything until the very end of the consultation when I'm giving my recommendations. There is
Mm,
so much beauty in allowing the silence and letting that person talk to you in its entirety and not interrupting and saying, "Oh, yeah, 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 I understand that. This is what I do." I just sit back and let it happen. And I have always been that person, whether it looked shy or it looked like I was just, being a jerk and, don't want to talk to anybody. No, it's sitting back and
mm,
listening and watching the emotion on the face and watching what people are telling you. And I was, humble enough to do that in fellowship. And I know a lot of people struggle with just learning and not thinking you know everything. And I've taken that through to consultations with my patients and even with my team, building a team in my practice. I mean,
mm.
you have to let other people talk and appreciate the beauty in the silences because they will talk and they'll reveal those things like you're talking about where they are in their life. Other things come up without you having to ask. And sometimes if you ask or you interject, you miss it. They're done. They've moved on. They're never going to tell you those things. So I don't know if that's
That is
helps
that
with
is
what you asked, but
absolutely. I'm not surprised by your answer. So I think to me, it's not just humility, but it's also empathy. I think
mm,
the one of the other second key word here is empathy in addition to humility. If you don't possess empathy, like you said, you're not going to listen. Because if you have empathy, there's a genuine interest in helping the patient. And when you're genuinely interested helping someone, that's when you listen. And on the flip side, the opposite is if you want to sell, you never listen, you constantly talk.
mhm.
That's why salespeople are so obnoxious, annoying, because you feel like they're not here for you, they're here for them. And I think that trust, that empathy, and that humility makes patients comfortable enough to talk to you about their most vulnerable aspect of their lives, the things they fear, things they wish they had, or things they want. And I think empathy is the biggest, the most important trait of anyone in healthcare, not just cosmetic surgery, that you need to possess to be able to help patients at a complete different level that some people might not even understand, and only the ones that do it will understand, and only
Mhm.
the patients that feel it will be able to tell you who those ones are. And I loved your answer. And my curiosity is, did you were mentioning you were staff surgeon at the U.S. Army, which is a very different environment than private practice. Any lessons from the military that still guide you, not just with patients, but also in the operating room?
Yeah, I mean, the military is all about it's all about discipline. It's all about being on a team. So that's really helped me quite a bit, both in the operating room and building my team that helps me. I mean, I can't do all of this all by myself. There's so much that my team goes into, but that discipline in the Army and kind of the whole goal of the Army is to create these high performers. And so I learned very early in my training and afterwards that being a high performer in the Army is how you get ahead. That's how you excel. And it was only after spending that time in the Army as a high performer, when I got out, I started kind of studying these things and discovered this theory of meta performance, which is above high performance. It's not what more can I do? It's not about working harder. It's about what else is possible and just kind of rising above and watching everything that's going on beneath you and not working harder and just putting your head down and saying, I can do it all. I can do it all myself. It's what more can we achieve? And that brought in teamwork as well. And so understanding how to manage a team, how to be on a team, and how to lead a team
Mm.
was super important. And so all of those things, I kind of got my baseline experience as that high performer in the Army, and it allowed me to open up to new things and this idea of meta performance and really just stepping back and looking at what more is possible. And that's really, I think it kind of set the baseline for me to excel now that I'm out.
Can you explain that a little more? The high performers and meta performers, in maybe real life examples that you had, because I wasn't familiar with those things, and I'm very interested. It's very interesting what you just said. I think you
Yeah.
can apply
There's a whole
to. I
book
think
about
you
it.
apply to any. I know. I think you can apply to anything if you can kind of maybe for the layman just with an example explain that.
Yeah. So I guess I can really distinctly think in residency, we would have clinic in the afternoons. Everybody hated clinic because it meant once you finish clinic, you see, 20 patients, and then you have 3 hours of notes to do, and you leave at 8 o'clock at night. And I remember I knew we could get faster through the clinic if I just did all of them. So I remember going through the hall and grabbing all the papers, seeing all the patients, presenting all of it to the staff, and just getting through. And it's like, I can do it fast. I'm just going to do it myself. It'll get done faster. And that's being a high performer. You can do it, and you're a task manager. You can do these things really well and really fast. And it's the mindset of, I can do it faster. I can do it better. So what's the point in trying to teach other people or delegate things to other people? And so instead of the mindset of, I'm the only one that can do it, how about I'm the best one to train and think about what else is possible if I took, 3 hours tonight and sat down with my team of residents and said, these are the steps that we're going to take, and we're going to move forward, together as a team. And that's how it's all going to work together. It's more about a mindset of elevating yourself and thinking what is possible, and what's the mindset that gets us there to get us running together as a team, rather than, I'm the best, I know everything, I'm a high performer, I'm going to get it all done all by myself and work harder and work harder and work harder. There's a max to that you can't psychologically
Hmm.
surpass. You can't be a high
Right.
performer all the time. It gets exhausting. So
Of
this
course.
meta performance frees you up. It's just a mindset shift that really frees you up to be, that person that looks at, how can we get this done? What else can we get done without putting more work and more sweat equity in?
And how are you applying it to your private practice? I know we just talked a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised to hear that. And you just less than 4 years ago, you went into private practice. I know your husband already had started that practice, and already you're building your second location
Hmm.
after less than 4 years. Can you explain what you feel? What was the one X factor that led to that type of success, and within the context of what we just talked about?
Well, we actually hired a business coach, and it's having somebody else that can call you on your bullshit sometimes and just say, you're doing that thing where you feel like you have to control everything in this practice. And as soon as I was able to have somebody call me out on that and really let go and realize I have to build a strong team around me, that we delegate up front, we have meetings, we have, pods of leadership within the office, and allowing, or just that release of allowing others to help and to really build them up, has been beneficial as well. So we have this coach that's been then coaching me, and it's just that release of somebody calling you out and saying, why are you doing that? What more could you do if we shifted our mindset to, building a team? So now my team actually gets coaching too. And so it's about developing every layer of this practice, not just me. You come out of training thinking, I got to be the best. What can I do? All of these things of what can I do? And it's like, you can't do it like all by yourself. You need somebody else. You need a team that's moving and rowing in the same direction. And so that was really, it opened up my eyes quite a bit to business coaching. Whereas that mindset I had before was always, I got to learn surgery. How many CEs can I go to? Things like that. And this was more, for me, about me as a
Mm.
leader. And you kind of need that to build a successful practice.
Interesting. What do you think the biggest factor or challenging factor or different the biggest difference in building your practice successfully was it that business coach that helped you get to the next level, or was it something else that came prior to that?
I mean, the business coach, I mean, that was a turning point for me for sure, because I was starting to get, this feeling of burnout after 2 years of Adam and I, my husband, trying to build this practice, just the two of us, talking about it all the time. We felt like we were banging our heads against the wall because nobody else cared about it as much as we did. but we found ways to open up and actually express these feelings to our team and not feel like we couldn't share things with them, and it really got a little bit more buy-in. I mean, they became engaged, and this felt like their practice too. So when we win, they win, and that's when the script really flipped. It's not all about us, and it's not I'm the boss and I am in charge of everything and I'm the only one responsible for this business moving on. And so we created opportunities for our team to win at the same time that we went. And that was the time that everything switched and everybody seemed to be working together. So when we had that meeting, a couple meetings in with our business coach, and we talked about burnout, and he said, okay, well, what's burnout? And I thought, I don't know. I couldn't describe it.
Mm,
So maybe it's just something in your head. Everybody has their own idea of burnout, but burnout isn't just this one big concept that, oh, I can diagnose you, you have burnout. It's something within you, and the way out is different for every single person. And so for me, really holding on to the business aspect of things has helped quite a bit, and I've become really passionate about it. But I would say that it's also helped my practice with my patients and how I care for my patients, because now I have this team that is really hands-on in the pre-op appointment. We
mm,
have people that identify with each and every patient, and they're like, that's their person that this patient calls throughout their journey. And then in the post-op, people are coming in and saying, oh, you look fabulous. And the amount of confidence that gives these patients post-op when they're in their post-op blues. I mean, not only has this helped me as a business owner, but this has helped my patients in my practice too, because
mm.
everybody wants this patient to feel how I've wanted them to feel the whole time.
That is probably, gosh, I wish I had talked to you in my first 5 or 10 years of my career, because if I just knew what you just learned with the business coach and everything you just said, gosh, I would probably live another 10 years longer than I will. Because everything you just said, I learned painfully through trial and error and banging my head against the wall. And I think for any young surgeon listening, or any seasoned surgeon that is in practice, has been in practice for a decade and still struggling, I would rewind what we just talked about, what Brittany just said, the past, I don't know, 5 minutes, just rewind it and listen to it again and again and again and again until you decide to do it. Because I could tell you what you just said is probably the secret sauce to business success, because none of us learned these things in residency, fellowship. We didn't learn these things unless you learned it from your mentors, or they had this conversation with you, which this is something that conversation I have with my fellows a lot, explaining them exactly what I learned painfully. I wish I had a business coach then. Now, how did you stumble on a business coach? You woke up some morning and said, I think I need a business coach because I'm burnt out.
Yeah, I have a good friend who has a practice. Actually, we share our building together, and so she had been using this coach and more as training her leadership team and doing a lot of sales training and things like that. And so Adam and I just went and had dinner with him, and he did his sales pitch, and that's what he's doing. He's selling himself, and we
Sure.
thought it's expensive, but the
Expensive is
value
relative. I mean, when you get
exactly.
the value you just got, I
Hmm.
think it puts the cost into perspective.
And I think that's what gives people pause is like, gosh, I don't know if I can spend thousands of dollars working on myself when I need to be in
Oof.
the clinic seeing patients. And that's one of those mindset things. And so, we had dinner with him, and we thought, you know what? We're not doing anything else that feels good right now. Let's try it. And it was so worth it. And I mean, he's the one that introduced me to these two books that I, read about business that really just got me obsessed with this type of mindset shift and really helped me get out of that self, wallowing of like, I'm burnout, healthcare providers are burnout. There's nothing I can do to get out of this. I just have to put my head down and grind. That mindset shift has been just freeing for me. But you didn't get those textbooks in residency and fellowship.
Mm.
And like nobody talks about, reading a book about teamwork or about, beyond high performance. It just doesn't come up in those types of academic
Yeah.
readings. So yeah, I'm still reading my textbooks and I still watch videos and, and developing surgical skill, but I'm also developing this other side that has really freed my stress by changing my mindset to be more open and learn more.
Any book suggestions you have that you might put into the show notes or
Yeah.
into the captions?
Well, these two that really got me obsessed with this type of thing is Beyond High Performance and then Five Dysfunctions of a Team. They are transformative.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now,
Yeah.
any podcasts you listen to on these types of topics, or are most podcasts you listen to completely different topics?
Yeah. Well, I love the business stuff. So Alex Hermosi is one of my favorites. I just
Love
love
them.
listening to that guy
Yes.
talk. It's just
Love them.
amazing.
Yes.
And then I listen to some personal finance things too, just to get you in that mindset of being responsible,
Love
throughout
it.
all aspects.
Wow, you seem to be an entrepreneur through and through. Who would have known someone coming
I
out
don't
of
know
the
where it came
military?
out, but I just became obsessed with it.
Yeah, I think that's just a natural passion and drive. I had that, and when I came out, and a lot of the things that you're saying, it resonates so well with me because that's not something that I had learned, but I had to educate myself on. And personally, I understand where you come from. I want to just make sure the audience can hear that, and because this is really the X factor. The difference between success and failure is not necessarily, of course you have to be a great surgeon, right? But if you're an average surgeon and you run your business well, you're going to be successful and you're not going to burn out. But and the other thing is what you just mentioned, getting coaching is essential. And most people look at it like you said, oh, I don't know if I can justify the expense. It's, very costly. Well, you got to spend money to make money. And when you built your practice, you didn't pay the entire cost out of your pocket. You got a loan.
Right.
You borrowed the money from the bank so you can pay it off. I mean, it's the same thing. You just put it on that tab if, you want to be successful. I think most people try to do it with the least amount of investment, not
Right.
realizing that the best investment is what you just did, which is you invested in yourself, because no one can take that ability ever away from you, right? Because you could use that ability and scale things. You can build, and constantly apply to your next venture, to your next project, whatever you're doing. And I think that's the part that people should have more faith in and look at it from that perspective so they actually are able to move forward.
Yeah, and I think something important too. I mean, we've kind of got onto this business and entrepreneurship track, but to make it work, you still do need to still work on mastering your craft. You need to have the education and you need to develop those skills. You don't have to be, and you should never think you're the best surgeon ever, but you still need to work on it. You still need to have good results. If I was doing all this and doing surgeries all the time and they were crap and people were unhappy, the business would be dead in the water. So you still need to work on your skill and your craft, but developing those skills early, using your training, your fellowship, and the next couple of years out of fellowship, that's the time that you really develop that and then say, you know, now I'm ready. I can do this, because you still have to produce quality and be a good person.
Love that. What is the most challenging surgery in your mind in cosmetic surgery within the spectrum of practice that you perform?
I think rhinoplasty for sure. I mean, it's a teeny tiny little area right in the middle of your face. It's where everybody's looking. And the wild thing about rhinoplasty is, it's millimeters. We're working in millimeters. And so you change 2 millimeters on one patient is going to look different than the same maneuver on a different patient. Every single nose is different. You have your steps that you go through, but this maneuver here is going to look wildly different on this patient. And it's going to have functional and cosmetic ramifications and implications for every move you make. And I don't know that people, understand that with rhinoplasty, one suture can change the whole nose. And so that's, I think, the hardest surgery.
So, can I ask you an honest question?
Yeah.
Why is it then, if you think that's the most difficult surgery, why did you take it upon yourself and just doing rhinoplasty and taking on the challenge. You seem to me like someone that likes to torture herself, not just with business, but also with one of the most challenging and technically challenging surgeries. Not just technically, also I think patients are sometimes difficult to manage emotionally because it is a huge change, changing the very thing that not only sticks out of your face, but is in the middle, in the center of your face, that has a huge effect on your facial appearance. What made you obtain the courage, because it requires courage, to tackle that, and to the point that you were literally sitting next to me on the rhinoplasty cadaver course at the ASCS, not just as a participant, but as a faculty, which is pretty darn impressive. It's pretty badass, by the way.
I mean, I don't know. Like you said, we torture ourselves. I'm not sure why we do it, but it is satisfying to know, again, you still have to be humble and just not think that you can fix every problem, but the problem solving that goes into it. And I think patients deserve people that are passionate about figuring out what all of these little things and these little nuances of surgery like this, I think our understanding of the implications and what can be done, patients deserve that because there's so many providers that take shortcuts or do things that don't serve the patient in their best interest, whether it's out of ignorance or just, a lack of skill. But I think we owe it to the patients to offer things, but only when we have all of the knowledge that we can to give them the best result.
Yeah, but you still haven't answered the question. You've generalized it a little bit too much. I want to know what went on actually in your head one day deciding, you know what, I'm in private practice, so here's my rhinoplasty patient. I think I can do it. And then that moment, and then fast forward 4 years later, you're teaching others how to do rhinoplasty. Like you need to, I want you to walk me through it. I want to know that. I'm genuinely curious because it's something that I always, when I train fellows, because I'm so passionate about it, because of everything you just said, and I like to have that spark light this huge passion in my fellows so that they can kind of take the torch and be the next one to do it. And like you teach at the next cadaver course that I didn't expect would happen so early. I want you to walk us through that.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of when you first start out, like, can I do this? Should I be doing this? It seems too soon, but I got my knowledge through fellowship, and there's no way that I could say that I learned all these things on my own in secret, watching videos and things like that. So going through doing this, I've always put in the work with the thought of how can I return this favor to other people? And maybe, I don't know, this is why, if I'm still not answering your question, but I really think that when we go through this journey, we do also owe it to other surgeons to be able to help in their development and their training, and especially in the AACS and the American Board of Facial Cosmetic Surgery, there is a level of service that I want to provide to them. And maybe that comes from, my service in the Army and that just feeling and drive all the time to be able to provide that service to other people. But, if nobody ever wants to share or train or give back, we stop as a specialty. We stop moving forward, and we stop being, the premier surgeons in this type of field. So I think always, people say, oh, it's not worth my money. It's not worth my time to spend time training other people or doing that. I think that's a huge disservice to our whole specialty. So I think that was kind of the light bulb for me is, wow, I learned so much in training. Let me keep working and then get to the point where I can say, I feel like I can teach somebody and I can actually develop somebody else, because I'm going to be gone someday. And I want people to continue on in this specialty and being the premier specialty for this.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel the same way. And it's not something you can really explain because it doesn't make sense other than what you just said. It's basically returning a favor. I feel obligated, and I don't even have to force myself. And what you just said, I totally understand. And that's the generosity that comes with appreciation, to get someone else excited about something you're excited about. It's literally sharing a passion and hoping that you can instill that in someone else. And I think that's what gets us going. And what you just said is absolutely true. And that's why education continues. What do you think was the single most important reason, or one of the reasons, that made you the confident? I know you're going to say now, you're way too humble. You're going to say, no, I'm not. That made you the confident surgeon you are because you not only, because I see what you do, results speak for themselves. No one has to explain. What most don't understand that as surgeons, we can look at someone's results and know exactly what their technical ability is, what they did well and what they missed, what they could have done better, if you scrutinize things or critically look at things. And also from how they speak, how they explain, how they present themselves. So you are a confident surgeon. You do amazing work. And of course, you didn't learn all of that in your residency or your training, because I always explain people, residency fellowship is just like someone just got their driver's license. You still have to go out there and drive. You're not going to become a race car driver or even win a championship coming out of driving school. What did you do? I mean, obviously you must have put in some work of whether it is that you went to courses, watched videos, or shadowed other surgeons. What would you recommend, or what advice would you give a surgeon that just came out of fellowship to be like you, to be another Brittany?
Yeah. Confidence, I think, in surgery, especially being a surgeon, is probably the hardest thing. And it's a lesson that not everybody is ever going to comprehend or master. But I wish people would eliminate the phrase imposter syndrome from their mind, because I hear so many young surgeons, people on social media that talk about imposter syndrome. And I know how that feels, because you come out and you're like, I've only done 10 of the, I shouldn't be the expert in this. But what if you were? What if you just, I'm the expert in this and I can do amazing things. What if you shift? It's a mindset shift. I know I've said it a million times, but you
No, I get
have
it.
to, yeah, you have to believe that, or it's going to come across to everybody that you talk about that you're unsure. And I've had the cases where I thought, 3 cases in a row where this one little thing happened. I'm like, okay, I suck. What am I doing? Should I even be doing this? Is it worth it? And and you learn and you get past that and you think, no, I should be doing this. I'm doing the right thing. There's something small I could improve on. So I'm going to do it. And I'm going to continue to be the expert in this. So it's definitely a mindset shift where it's not imposter syndrome. Stop thinking that, it is, what do you want to be, and go do that. What is the person that is the expert in facelifts? What does that person do? And then go do it. Write it down in a list. Put it in ChatGPT. Who cares? What does an expert in this field do? And then you start doing those things.
I love that answer. I think that was very valuable for anyone listening right now, because imposter syndrome is real. I agree with you. I heard it also somewhere else where, I don't know who it was, just said exactly what you just said. We should get rid of that term, because that is the biggest hurdle that most can't overcome. And getting out of the gate, they don't even get started. And I know a lot of surgeons that completed some of the best fellowships, including some of my own fellows, that decided they're not going to practice cosmetic surgery. And I think it's because of that.
Yeah.
And
it's a crutch. And I don't think it helps
isn't
anybody.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with perhaps how much, I think passion is one of the drivers that helps you overcome it. I can talk for myself. I resonate completely with what you said. All these experiences that you're like, man, the outcome wasn't what you expected, and you're questioning yourself. Doubt kicks in. You see other people doing great work. You're thinking, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But personally, for me, and I want to know from you whether that is the case as well, is I was so passionate about it that I just didn't want to take no as an answer. Those things made me constantly improve my skills. And I think the driver of that was passion. I really wanted to learn this, to learn how to be great like the great ones. And I'm still doing it. I just bought two big textbooks on rhinoplasty, and because I want to learn even further new techniques and even improve the results and the little things. I think sometimes the 5 or 10% missing things make 90% of the entire difference in your entire career that could catapult you, get you to the next level or the stratosphere. And I think passion is the leading driver of all of that. And if you're not
Absolutely.
passionate, wouldn't you agree that it's
Oh
really
yeah.
passion? Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not
And
passionate about something, you burn out. As soon as that's true burnout, you say it's not worth it anymore. When you have those little things, you're like, why am I doing this? This isn't worth it. And you're done unless you have passion. That's the only thing that keeps you on the horse, I think.
yeah, I think and I just realized that actually very recently. And so now when I interview for fellows, I don't interview anymore what program they came from, or because honestly, I don't know. Everybody's different. I know residents from the programs I graduated, we have complete different abilities and surgical skills. So that is just one small aspect. I now try to screen for passion because I know if someone has the passion, they will succeed. And they must have had good surgical skills and must have been academically capable if they came this far. So now what is the X factor to become the next Brittany? I think passion is the word, because passion will help you, first of all, overcome the most important hurdle, which is imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
which then will enable you to constantly hone in on your craft and improve your skills and constantly learn to become better, learn from your mistakes. And that's how we grew. And what
Yeah.
people don't realize, every surgeon, even the best in the world, they had their first patient at some point,
Hmm.
and they're lacking self-confidence. Unless they were crazy, they were lacking a good amount of self-confidence until they obtained the knowledge and the skill to become more confident. But even the most confident, and that's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Yeah.
Even the most confident, as a matter of fact, the most confident surgeons or people in general, they lack, they possess something called intellectual humility, which is exactly what you possess, which comes through experience. And that intellectual humility makes you constantly wanting to learn more, because you know that, first of all, you will never know everything. You will never master everything. And it's not about those things. It's not about an outcome. It's about the process to constantly learn and just get better. Then your next surgery should be better than your previous surgery. And
Hmm.
that's just step by step. And don't worry, don't look in the rearview mirror other than learning from your mistake instead of dwelling or putting fuel on your imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And as you said about your screening for some of your fellows now, it reminded me of something as I was applying to residency, right out of school. Somebody said to me, "This shouldn't be something that you want to do. This shouldn't be something you want to do. This should be something you have to do." So
Mm.
for me, just
Oh, wow. That's a good
that
one.
defined passion to me, and that has stuck in my mind forever. And when people come to me, asking how I
Mm.
got where I am, getting through residency and fellowship and applications, I said, you should really think about this before you even apply. Is this something you found and you think you want to do, or is this something you feel like you have to do for
Mm.
yourself? And so that was
I
really
love that.
powerful for me. And that I think that really instills passion when
I
you ask
love
that
that. I'm
question
going
to
to use
people.
that now. I call it the eight Brittany question. And
Perfect.
so my question for you now is, did you have to do a fellowship, or did you want to do a fellowship and then you realized that you're actually passionate about? Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, I wanted to do it first, and then I wanted to do it as soon as I was out of residency. I thought, man, I want to do this so
But
bad
did you
because I did
have
a
to do it?
I didn't know if I felt like that. And then I did a few years in my army service, and then I thought I have to. I went and saw Joe
Mm.
Niamtu, and he was talking about the training and things like that. And you know what? I thought I have to get this
Mm.
training to be, again, I want to be the expert. I want to be the person that's doing this. What do
I
I
love
have to
that.
do to get there? Fellowship is what I had to do. So that helped me through that. I knew I was passionate, and that's what I had to do to become the person that I had envisioned for myself.
I absolutely love that. And I feel that you have to become a fellowship director pretty soon. And, our profession needs people like you, and you're very inspiring, you're very passionate. And I believe and it doesn't have to be anytime soon, whenever you're ready for it, because it's also a decision that it's also a business decision because there's a lot of responsibility
Mhm.
associated with it. And I know you're just building a second location, a second practice, and there's a lot of work. I don't even know how you do it with a 6-year-old daughter and both you and your husband working. I mean, it's pretty impressive, but now how do you manage that challenge, the life work balance, and having a 6-year-old daughter, and at the same time a thriving practice that you're growing like crazy?
We make it part of our family. Not that we bring home work or bring work home with us every day, but our daughter knows which office we're going to. She goes into the office. She's got her space where she does her work. She's in the back seat when I'm taking her to school. Turned around and she had my rhinoplasty book open. I came home and I said, what? I fixed a cheekbone today. What's that called? Zygoma, mom. So
Wow,
we bring her into it and make her excited about these are things we're doing. And these are the reasons that, mom and dad are working. And it's setting up her mindset for her own success in whatever she wants to do. But I think not, everybody wants to say this is work, this is home life, and they need to be separate. You got to have this balance. What if you don't need a balance? What if they don't have to be separated? They can just work together. You can have this quality, intentional time with your family, but it can also be learning and guiding our daughter into what success looks like for us and what that could look like for her too. So we don't try to separate it. That gets exhausting. We just, kind of
Mm.
mash it all together and make it this continuum of balance, but also developing her and teaching her and having really quality relationships. It's so important. You need that support system at home.
I love that. That's such great advice. So what do you guys do for fun, like, when you guys are not working? Is there do you guys leave yourself? I know you are very health and fitness oriented. I can
Mhm.
tell from your post that you take your personal health and wellness very seriously, which is, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. How do you find time for that? And as well as, like vacations or time off from work. I know it's hard when you're building a practice, but
Mhm.
what advice do you have, or what are you struggling with?
Well, I struggle with probably something that everybody that owns a practice does. It's like, every day that it's closed, that's money out the door. And especially now we have two practices, it feels like, oh my gosh, we're doubling down. But like you said, if you don't take care of yourself, I get up early. I work out every morning, so I don't have to worry about it. It is done. It is a part of my day. So I'm taking care of that. My husband and I schedule vacations for just us. We schedule one with our daughter. We have to plan ahead of time, but we do it. And we do things as a family. We all golf together. And in Michigan in the winter, it's horrible. So we don't golf. We go skiing instead. So we find those things that are natural ways to detach, and that's what the balance I'm talking about is. You go and do things that you're passionate about and are healthy and good for family life, and you just naturally detach and
Mm,
connect while you're out doing those things that are away from home, away from the office.
interesting. So you just mentioned day outside of the office is lost money. How important is it, just for perspective, how important is money to you? And is that because oftentimes when we talk to colleagues, they want conversation is that, and there is no context for it. No one can explain the importance of it, or how much money is enough. And you lose money, or you lose revenue when you're not in the office. So what? Are you going to starve? Are you going to go
Nope.
bankrupt? So to put it in perspective, how important is that to you, or both of you and your husband, as business owners? I'm just curious, because that's something, the humble, sobering, I guess, lesson in life I learned a little bit too late. I wish I had learned it earlier and I wouldn't have tortured myself. But I
Yeah.
want to hear from you, since you're still in your first decade.
Well, it's scary. I mean, you come out of school with so much debt, and then you go into debt with a practice, and it's like that's scary, to think, oh my gosh, if something happened, how would I pay for all of these things? But when you start to shift and realize that your revenue or things are probably going to be the same. They're just going to be in a shorter or smaller amount of days. You can take those days apart because you do need to reset your mind. Because if
Mm,
you continue on and you're just that driving as that high performer all the time, you really bog yourself down. And then you get in like
yeah.
this cycle in your mind where you're always trying to come up with new things and new problems to fix. And you really need to stop and reset. And that still allows you to go ahead and, get the revenue that you need to cover your business loan, to cover your school loans. But most of all, like, we have a whole team of 20 people that rely on us for their paychecks, and that's
Mm,
also important too. So yes, there's all those stressors, and it's so hard first as you come out of thinking about all of those things. But if you do prioritize health, time, teamwork, all of those things, you will have a thriving business that you can plan ahead and know these are the days we have to take for team development for us as families. And that is going to drive your business forward, and your revenue is not going to change. You're still going to be able to cover those loans. It's just a mindset shift that you have to make that's so scary when you have those huge debts coming out of school or starting your practice.
absolutely. And I think one of the things I resonate with is that, and I think it really burned me out the first decade of my career where I felt I had to put a stop on it because I burnt out. But then only very recently, about 2 years ago, I'll tell you a little story to that point that you just made, because I think it's very important for people to listen to this and hear it. And I wish I had heard myself talk 20 years ago, and maybe you find it interesting too. We were coming out of a great weekend with the family, and we had so much fun. And Monday turned, the kids didn't have school. I had to go to work. I know I had a very busy week ahead. And everybody was just chilling. We were having a coffee, and I knew I had to run out. And I just set out my thoughts loudly. I said, man, I wish I didn't have to work today. I so wish that I could have stayed with you all today. And I didn't realize that anybody was listening. And my wife is like, well, why don't you? And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, well, because I have patient schedule. I can't just not go to work. She said, no, I understand, but why why don't you take because I said I wish I had Mondays off and I had a long weekend
Uh-huh.
every now and then or all the time,
Yes.
getting too greedy. And she said, well, and then she said, well, why don't you? I said, well, I have to go to work. I mean, I have to pay bills and all of this and that. I have a busy schedule. I have to. Like, what do you mean? She said, well, you own your own business. I mean, isn't that something you can, I mean, who do you need to talk to? I said, well, myself, obviously. She said, well, can you just take Mondays off? And I said, and then all of a sudden, for the first time, I started thinking about it and considering it and calculating in my head whether I could or not. And I was thinking, well, I don't know. I guess I could. I don't know. She said, well, why don't you? So that stuck in my head as I'm driving that morning to the
Hmm.
office. Is a 25-minute commute for me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I started to calculating in my head how it would look like, what if, and how I would arrange it. By the time I got to the office, I had decided that I'm just going to start off by taking every other Monday off. So I have 2 long
Perfect.
weekends per month because that would be enough for me. And I just could take my son to school and then go have breakfast with my wife and just do nothing other than just family and no work at all.
Yeah.
Not really checking emails or anything. And I walk in, I talk to Quinn, my coordinator. I said,
Hmm.
Quinn, I'm going to take every other Monday off. This is literally that morning I walk into the office. She's like, what do you mean? You like, I said, well, can we do that? Can you do that? Do you think it will affect the business? She's like, thinks literally for 3 seconds, goes like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you can do that. Cool. All right. And I'm like, oh, that was easy. I thought I'm going to hit resistance. And they're going to say, oh,
Yeah.
you're crazy. You can't do that. What are we going to do with patient? It was the most liberating thing. It was just this weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I did it myself. No one did it for me. I made that. It was all a decision. You know what happened, Brittany, after that? This was 2 years ago. My revenue grew 25% that year. And I was more productive than ever. And at the same time, more relaxed. Subjectively, actually feeling I'm working less, but then I made more money.
That's
And
it. That's meta performance. What you just said. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's what happened. And now I'm contemplating taking every Monday off.
Yeah.
So just to your point is that we think if we do something, it will affect us negatively. We always are fixated of what are the negative things that happen from our decisions and never think what are the positives that we could be missing out based on our decisions that we're making. So it's all mindset. It's all in our heads.
Yeah.
And I wish I had heard myself talk 20 years ago. I swear to God, I would have done it from day one.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, yeah, you said, what does it look like to be that guy that can take his kid to school and have breakfast with your wife? This is the way, and you did it. You made it happen. I mean, that's amazing. It's got to be so freeing.
So so that's if I were to give my 35-year-old self an advice, it would be that don't be afraid of making decisions, because those decisions sometimes are the best you make. And in worst case scenario, I had thought myself too. Of course, I had thought it through. I said, hey, if it didn't work, I'll just go and work on every Monday now if it didn't work or it had a negative effect. I'm not going to go hungry or bankrupt. I can just test it. So sometimes we just have to overcome our own inner resistance, and then everything will be fine. Well, this was really fun conversation. I personally learned a lot from you. You're just so inspiring. Your journey is making me as a fellowship director even more so motivated. My fellows are already getting annoyed hearing your name constantly. I hope I don't pressure them too much, but I always tell them, just look at Brittany. Just if you do what she did, you'll be fine. Just go on her social media. She does great work. If you have any doubts whether you can do something or not, I like Zig Ziglar's quote that if you know someone that has done something, that means it's possible. And you're the perfect example. And I know you took that obviously yourself as well. And that's why you have reached, and I feel like you've only reached the tip of the iceberg. I'm really excited to just observe your journey. I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders. And at the same time, I'm proud that I had a small part in your journey. But from what I hear, everything you've achieved so far just comes from who you are as a person, the humble and empathetic person you are, and the passion you possess for the field. And I think that's the secret sauce to success. It's not something magical. It's who you are and then who you get to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany, and stay in touch. And I can't wait to see you on further panels at the scientific meetings or cadaver courses, and hoping that you stay active. And I know you're busy, but I'm counting on you.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much.
Good. Thank you so much, Brittany. All right, everyone, episode's over. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Brittany Eidson as much as I did. You can find her on Instagram under Dr. Brittany_cosmetic surgery, spelled dr.brittany_cosmetic surgery, one word, on Instagram. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or leave comments on Spotify so that more people can view or listen to this podcast and benefit from it just like you did. Again, this is your host, Dr. Daria Hamra, and wishing you a great day. And until next time, bye-bye.